This is a video specifically for, I guess you would say, black people in metro Atlanta, but it probably applies to black folks throughout the country. We just had an election, and on the ballot was office for mayor. There were 5 candidates running, including the incumbent, and three of the 5 city council seats. And most importantly, there were two bills there. One would raise the sales tax in the area to a penny. And if that passed, the second part was that that penny would be used to offset and do a tremendous reduction in the property tax bills of all property tax owners in the county. Now, you have to understand that Atlanta is in the South, okay? And most of us remember that from I'd say 40s, the late 40s until 1965, there was massive problems with black people being able to vote. And in fact, it took a constitutional amendment for black people to be guaranteed the right to go to the polls and vote. Now, the area I live in, the city I live in, is one of the highest income black areas in DeKalb County. And even though I don't live in it, I'm like, I live in a basic house, okay? I live in a regular, everyday house, okay? But there have been a lot of homes that have been built within 2 or 3 miles of me that are occupied by blacks that range up to $1 million and more. Now, I say all of that to give you the background that I am not dealing with an uneducated population. I'm not dealing with a poor population. At the last election, the mayor was elected with less than 25% of the votes. In one council district, there were 8,000 registered voters, and I think less than 1,300 of them voted. That's pathetic, because I look at it this way. Those same people who did not vote will be the first ones to start raising sand about about how sorry the government is and how they can't get anything done. But on the other hand, they don't go to the polls. And I'm going to be honest, I was out campaigning for a candidate. My candidate didn't win. I look at that as being life. Your candidate's not always going to win. But when you look at people that will tell you to your face, oh, I don't vote because there's nothing to vote for. I don't vote because it doesn't make a difference. And then that same person will turn around and ask you, how come they approved a liquor store in my community? How come the only thing we get is gas stations and storage facilities? You get it because you don't get up and go to the polls and vote for people that are going to make change. Most importantly, regardless of who wins the election, you don't put pressure on your city council or your county commission to do what you want to do. And I've just reached the point, I'm going to be perfectly honest, I've reached a point where I just don't, most of my work is work with people that are serious, have serious issues, and are working to try to resolve them. So quite naturally, that and most of the people I work with are black. But I just find it troubling because I had to tell somebody the other day. I said, we were talking about voting, so I voted the first day. In fact, I was the first person in my city to vote because I was standing out there waiting for the polls to open. So the next day I posted, I said, Today I'm voting for Jimmy Lee Jackson, and then I went on and said I was voting for Reverend Reeve, and I went on down the list of veterans that had been, people, civil rights veterans that had been killed. And somebody had the nerve to come back to me and say, I wouldn't be bragging about that. They're going to come get you. Well, I wanted to say, you know what? Maybe if you knew your history and knew what it took for you to have the right to vote, you might know what I'm talking about because, and this is going to pretty much be my thing on it. This year marked the 60th year since the bombing of 16th Street Baptist Church in Birmingham, Alabama, where 4 little girls were murdered by that bombing and died in that bombing. And people will tell you about that bombing, but they can't tell you why the church was bombed. They say, oh, it's just some racist Klanmen. No, it was a massive voting rights effort going on in Birmingham in 63. And in fact, if you can look at this picture behind me, this is a photo of when they water hosed students who were trying to register to vote. I tell people, I said, one of the greatest, to me, one of the greatest documents that Dr. King wrote was Letter from a Birmingham Jail. And he was in Birmingham because he was leading an effort to get black folks access to the polls. So when black folks get in my face and tell me they're not going to vote, one or two things happens. If I'm working for a candidate, I'll say, okay, thank you, and I'll move on. If I'm just out and we're having a conversation, I'll just say, well, you're trifling. You're trifling. You are an enemy of the people because if you don't vote, you actually vote. You vote for whoever wins. So you can't complain because you vote for them because you didn't vote for somebody else. But lo and behold, that's just my position. So let me back this up real quick so you can really understand it. When Tracy Abrams ran for governor of the state of Georgia, there were enough black uncast ballots in metro Atlanta that could have put her into the governor's mansion. Same thing here. There were so many, I tell people this, there are so many uncast votes here by blacks in the metro Atlanta area that young people, you guys could get together and you could make Beyonce, Cardi B, Jay-Z, or whoever you wanted, man, you could definitely make them your city council person. So anyway, the next time somebody tells you that they're not going to vote or there's nothing to vote for, you remind them of 16th Street Baptist Church, and you also remind them of Cheney, Goodman, and Swerner, 3 civil rights workers who were murdered in Philadelphia, Mississippi, and buried in a gravel pit. And all of that was just so you could have the right to go to the poll. So I stand by my position. Those who don't vote are trifling. Those blacks who decide they're not going to vote, they're trifling, and they are a disgrace to our ancestors. And you can put your comments below, but that's my opinion.